Hello guys, I have not been live for a very long time, so I'm super out of practice, but today we're going to be just icing some cupcakes, and I'm going to show you how to make some really simple flowers, roses, and maybe some other type of flower as well. So these are just basic chocolate cupcakes, and then inside I put some strawberry compote, and I let it set in there because I really love it when it kind of soaks into the cupcake, and then I can go ahead and decorate it really easy without things slipping and sliding everywhere. So first I'm just gonna start off with my center. I am using Italian meringue buttercream today. And then I upped the butter content because whenever you're making flowers, you want to really make sure that you have a lot of butter content in there. This is also going to be helpful when you're using things like Russian tips. If you've ever had difficulty with Russian tips before, not enough butter content. Or if you live in like a really warm environment, then sometimes it can cause the buttercream to get too soft, and then you just end up with issues when you're trying to pipe that because your hand is warming up the buttercream in your piping bag at the same time. So that can be a big problem. Hi there. Yes, everything is going well with me. I'm getting so much stronger and better every day. And just, I think being more on YouTube again has been really uplifting for me as well. So with the rose, it's so simple, right? You're just literally using an arc-like motion. Really keep that pressure on the bag even. That is going to be your biggest battle when you're making roses or when you're piping anything. It's all about that even pressure. So you can kind of see here. And this one, I'm doing a really straight rose. Nothing too complicated. Then you just end up with that once you're done, and it's literally just like arcs the whole way through. I am using Italian meringue buttercream, but you can use American as well. What I was saying before, if you kind of missed it, is you have to use a lot of butter content in there. Let's do another one. This time, let's switch things up a little bit. So I'm gonna do a couple smaller roses, and then I'm gonna fill in the gaps with some filler buttercream. Also, a tip, you don't wanna have your piping bag too full because it makes it really hard to control. So when I'm doing multiple flowers, I don't love to do it on like a what's it called? One of those rose like petal things, because I just find that it takes way too long for me to like lift it off, and then I find it ends up wrecking my flowers a lot of the time if I don't have enough of a base underneath. I know some people can do it really perfectly. I'm lazy and I want to do it right on here the whole time. Yeah, Swiss meringue buttercream works just as well too. Okay, so I'm going to start here. Same motion. Little bit smaller of swoops on this one because obviously it's going to be a smaller rose. By the way, I'm using a Wilton 104 if you're wondering. Okay, so there's my little rose right there. I'm gonna probably put another one over here. Now the general rule of thumb is you wanna go with odd numbers on your, whatever you're decorating. Always, I learned this in art class when I was like in grade 4, go with odd numbers because it always looks good. Like if you're piping a bunch of grapes or something, or you're creating an arrangement, you always wanna go odd. If you go even, it tends to look a little bit strange. So we're gonna go for 3. I'm making some of the roses a little bit more closed. In order to have that closed off look, you kind of notice how I piped it a little bit tighter. And then when I'm using my piping bag, I'm kind of drawing it in towards the center a little bit more instead of flaring it out. That's what kind of gives it that more closed look. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Laura. Okay, and I'm gonna place my other one probably like right here. This one gets a little tricky because you might bump into your other flowers. But I kind of try to use the tip to help me fill in those gaps. And you can make these all the same size. There is no rule. You could either make them the same size or you can just make them a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Now, of course, we have all of this other part. And also, I don't know what happened to this cupcake. It got a little mangled. Like, look at this. What is this? I don't know what happened. I think I took it out of the pan too hot. But now I'm gonna go in with my filler. Now, I know Russian tips is something that a lot of people struggle with using. So this tip is like this, and it's supposed to be kind of like a tulip type thing. So because of the high butter content, it's probably gonna be just fine. It's also cooler right now as well, so my hand's really not gonna heat this up too much. I'm going to go up and down, but it really, really matters how much you squeeze and when you decide to stop squeezing. So I'm going to squeeze this and lift up and stop squeezing. And then there you create that flower like super, super easily. I'm gonna go in and do that again. Stopping squeezing and pulling up. So if you want it to be like this one's a little bit looser, that's because I just pulled more up and down while still squeezing for a slight little bit. This one is tighter because what I did was I squeezed, I stopped squeezing, and then I pulled up. So it just really depends on the type of look that you want. Okay, if you ever get this, where it's missing the center, something is clogged. So it's like, I really highly recommend that you have some sort of paper towel to do that. Now, not all is lost. You can either scrape this off or just go right back in and do it again. Okay, and then I'm gonna go in, and I'm just going in with the petal tip. This one is a little too large, but whatever, we're just going with it. So we're gonna go in. When you have a leaf tip like this, you always wanna hold the flat part flat to the cupcake or flat to the cake, whatever it is that you're making. And then that way you're gonna end up with a beautiful leaf. Now, like I said, the butter content is really, really high in my Italian meringue buttercream. So you're gonna notice the tip of the leaf isn't going to be as beautiful as it could. When your butter content is lower, then it kind of swoops the leaf together and it creates that beautiful leaf tip at the end. But obviously this is a stiffer buttercream. So I'm gonna show you how I kind of combat that. So I'm just gonna squeeze right here, kind of wiggle it a little bit, and I'm gonna stop squeezing and pull off. So see how it doesn't create that really beautiful like together leaf? It kind of ends up looking more like two leaves, which is fine for this project. And don't be afraid to layer. That is what is going to create that more realistic look for you. Okay, I could just easily leave it here. I love when the top of my cupcake really doesn't show too much of the cake. So I'm gonna go in a little bit more and add in some more of those filler flowers. Always good that when you're decorating cupcakes like this, you have small piping tips to do that. So there's the top of that one. For those of you that maybe just joined, here's the other one that we created. I'm gonna show you another rose that you can make, more of an open rose. So this one, again, going in with that Wilton 104. The smaller end, I'm going to point towards the outside of the cupcake. So I'm going to kind of hold it flat like this, and then I'm gonna wiggle, 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 and swoop it back to myself. So I'll show you right here. Wiggle, 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 swoop it back to myself. Kind of creating these like petal-like shapes. Sorry. Really out of practice with like showing exactly what I'm doing. So this is kind of what you want to end up with. Then we're going to layer again, just a little bit, not a ton. Also, I know I'm just kind of sticking with my blue here, but you can have fun with the colors. Mix the colors in there. That's what makes your cupcakes look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so now we've got that double portion. Yes, Shannon, this is Italian meringue buttercream. And then I'm going to go now into the center. So before, with our classic rose, we started in the center and then we worked our way around. This time we did the outer petals to create a more open rose. Look, now I'm gonna go into my center, up like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the classic rose, creating those little arcs. So we've kind of got that kind of more open-y rose. I'm going to show you another variation of this one. So this time I'm going to do one little outer layer. I'm going to refill my piping bag here. Anytime you're refilling that piping bag, make sure to give it a good squeeze right back into your mixing bowl, because air is going to create a really bad look for your flour. It's going to like pop and it's going to burst, and then your flour will be wrecked and you'll be sad. So make sure you always squeeze out the air. Like, see, I've got a ton of air in here. Squeeze it out back into the bowl. That's the sound you want. Okay. And I can still feel a little bit of air, but it'll be okay. Okay, so let's go in with a little bit of an open look again. Okay, this time I'm not going to do another ring. I'm going to start my center right away. Oops. Okay, and now you see these little weird kind of gaps there. Now I'm gonna go in with the larger side of the 104 Wilton tip right here. I'm gonna kind of anchor it right in there. Now, be very careful, because as you're doing this, you don't wanna sweep off all the buttercream. You wanna make sure that you're maintaining this. But we're gonna kind of do, this takes a little bit of finesse, so be careful. You wanna kind of like bring up the petals a little bit more so that it looks more natural. And I'm gonna do it so that it doesn't perfectly align with every single petal. We're aiming for this like center, like between those petal markings. So I'm gonna go here and loop it. And really the technique matters here, but really if your buttercream isn't right, it's never gonna work. Don't be afraid to wipe off the tip of your piping tip. So there we got a little bit more of an open kind of rose. Okay, now I'm gonna just show you, I don't even know what I would necessarily call this flower. I mean, I guess it's a rose, but it's a little bit more ruffly. So we're gonna go in here, starting in the center. I ran low on cocoa powder when I was making these, so I added in chocolate chips. But what ended up happening was that all the chocolate chips sunk to the bottom, which I've never had before. Usually they all just, you know, stay suspended in the cupcake, but I think it still tasted fine. My daughter said they were fine. Okay, so now we're going to ruffle the edge. So it's the same technique, but we're gonna kind of squiggle back and forth first. So see, we're kind of squiggling as we do this. Somebody just asked me, how do I make the top of my cupcake so flat? There's a trick to this. So if you want a flat cupcake, which I recommend for when you're doing a floral cupcake like this, and then you don't get that dome shape. If I'm making classic cupcakes, I want that dome shape. But when I want it flat like this, the trick is to leave it in a cupcake tin to cool a little bit, and then it'll flatten out naturally. If you take them out right away, I find that they stay really curved and puffy, which sometimes it does call for that. Okay, so see, I'm ruffling this edge like so. It's the same motion, but it's the same rainbow arc, but I'm squiggling it along the way. It almost kind of ends up looking like a carnation, I want to say. And this looks stunning when you add in kind of like a dark edge in your piping bag. And all you need to do is, before you pipe with your color, paint a strip along some of the edges of your piping bag, like right in there, like right along the edge on the inside. And then just put your buttercream in as normal. And then as you pipe, it really creates a very beautiful, natural looking color change. And especially for carnations, because they get dyed different colors all the time. You know, we see it in bouquets and things. So again, really just squiggling. My thin edge is at the top. The thick is at the bottom. I used to always think it was the other way around, and then my flowers would look ridiculous. But you can learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to make them. And then see, you end up with kind of this carnation-y type flower. Let's do one more. Why not? I'm going to do one with maybe just an accent rose that's kind of the focal point, and then we'll have those surrounding pieces. So it's great to have those kind of Russian tips that just pipe the one flower, but what I love about the fact that when you're using something like a Wilton 104, you're able to do so many different types of floral work with just one tip. Like if you don't want to go spending a bunch of money. I would say Italian meringue buttercream is better to make flowers. I just find the hold is better. It's also less grainy feeling, so you get this really smooth like texture. I personally also like the taste of Italian meringue buttercream better, but not everybody eats eggs, so I think American buttercream is a great alternative as well. Okay, let's do one last cupcake here, and then I should be heading to bed. So we're gonna start with our center. Okay, this time I'm gonna show you a bit of a different way to do the center. So you can hold this, and then you can kind of twist your cupcake and kind of letting it drop like that. So you end up with a little loop. And then going in with your arc. Okay, so I've got my rose there, and it's quite a tall one, and I want it to be the focal point. So we're gonna make the greenery surrounding it a little bit lower. So again, going in and keeping this nice and flat. Whenever I do this color combo, it always reminds me of like a lush meadow. By the way, something I've been doing because I don't really know if I'm gonna have a lot of storage in the next little while. So I've just been kind of using the colors that I have on hand. And a lot of colors that I have are airbrush colors. So I've just been like dyeing my buttercream with airbrush colors and utilizing those. You know, I think that the change from using regular gel food colorant as an airbrush color is a lot harder of a switch than to use it the other way around. I know some people get freaked out because obviously the gel food colorants are so much more vibrant and they mix in way better initially, but if you honestly just keep mixing with the airbrush colors, it also does the same thing. Also, always make sure that you re-whip your buttercreams anytime you're going to be piping something. So there we have our final cupcake of the video. Thank you so much for joining me. I haven't gone live in a really long time. It's been really fun decorating with you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.